We are talking about right now. There are a whole lot of evolving threats out there, from the new warnings from ISIS to the threat from homegrown terrorists, and then not to mention that recent security breach at the White House, and now new concerns about our ability to stay on top of all of this, with the Washington Post writing today, quote, "An exodus of top-level officials from the Department of Homeland Security is undercutting the agency's ability to stay ahead of a range of emerging threats, including potential terrorist strikes and cyber attacks." They cite interviews with current and former officials. Joining us now to talk about this is Gillian Turner. She's a former White House National Security Council staff member under Presidents Bush and Presidents Obama. Wow, that article, something else. What is going on at Department of Homeland Security?
Well, I just want to start out by caveating that the Department of Homeland Security has been doing an incredible job since its creation in 2003 of defending us, American citizens, here at home. We haven't had another major terrorist attack. That said, it's also riddled with internal problems. I think the root of the problem that we're seeing now is the fact that DHS, since its sort of establishment in response to the 2001 9/11 terror attacks, is that it brought in pieces, entire offices from about 22 different federal departments and agencies.
So is it too big? Is that the problem? Because, they oversee TSA and they also oversee Customs and Border Protection. And those guys are busy down on the border right now, changing diapers and serving as the front lines in the fight against Ebola, hoping that it doesn't come over here. That came out of congressional testimony last week.
Yeah. Well, one of the issues is its size. Another issue is really that it's been given a hodgepodge of conflicting missions. I mean, everybody who came to be a part of the newly created DHS in 2003 had a different idea of what it was intended to do. We had pieces of departments, the Department of Defense, Energy, Justice, Health and Human Services,
okay, so
and on and on and on.
A hodgepodge, as you put it. Are they sufficiently focusing on the threat against the homeland? Are we okay?
I think that the entire intelligence community, of which the department is an important part, is focused on the threat posed to the United States by international terrorist organizations. That is 100%, we're 100% on board and aggressively trying to target those organizations. So DHS is doing that. The problem, again, is internal. Also problems with rotating leadership at the senior level.
Well, the former acting TSA head called it a toxic culture, said the morale was, quote, terrible there, according to this article. But let me go on to something else, and that is the issue of passports. Canada over the weekend announcing that would basically revoke the passports of its citizens who travel overseas to join in terror groups, including ISIS. The U.S. hasn't done that at this point. Why?
What the U.S. is focused on now, and I think this is the correct course of action, is to really hone in on creating a set of international laws that will help to deal with the problem of international terrorism. It's a trans-border threat, a transcontinental threat.
Okay.
I'm
sorry, go ahead, finish.
The president's going to bring this issue to the UN Security Council directly later this week.
Okay, and then speaking of the UN, the president is going to, or the United States rather, propose a resolution at the United Nations that would basically make it illegal for people to join any kind of terror groups across the world. And this would apply to all of the countries at the United Nations. This thing apparently doesn't have any teeth. What do you think is going to happen with this?
Well, look, this combined with the president's other big initiative right now, which is trying to shore up the anti-ISIS coalition, whose goals are to ultimately defeat and destroy ISIS, are the two most important things for the administration to be focusing in on now. We'll see later in the week whether any of these things take flight, but I think it's important to note that the focus is really on the international community and building a coalition to fight ISIS.
All right, Gillian Turner, thanks so much for joining us out of Washington today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Mars is being invaded.